Lazy yellow moon coming up tonight, shining through the trees. Crickets are singing and lightning bugs are floating on the breeze. Baby, get ready. Across the field where the creek turns back by the old stumble road, I'm gonna take you to a special place that nobody knows. Baby, get ready. Ooh, you and me going fishing in the dark, lying on our backs and counting the stars where the cool grass grows. Down by the river in the full moonlight, we'll be falling in love in the middle of the night, just moving slow. Staying the whole night through, it feels so good to be with you. Spring is almost over and the summer's coming, the days are getting long. Waited all winter for the time to be right, just to take you along. Baby, get ready. And it don't matter if we sit forever and the fish don't bite. We'll jump in a river and cool ourselves from the heat of the night. Baby, get ready. Ooh.
And the Lord said, let it be black. And it was black.
And it's the sounds of darkness. Okay. All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us on the Political Deep Dive. I'm Dave Valente. Sometimes Restream is a little weird with their transition from the from our intro to us being on, but yeah. So thanks for joining us on the Political Deep Dive. I'm Dave Valente, joined this week by Ari Gabrick. How you doing?
Good, yourself?
Good. Dan, the man Fishman, how you doing?
I will be partaking of Coors, the banquet beer, during the show tonight.
Nice. Very nice. Hey, Daryl, how you doing? And joined by Joe Solosky. Joe, what is going on, brother?
Great to see you. Dan, I will be partaking in a little bit of my favorite bourbon this evening. Here's to all of you.
Is that just rocks?
Yeah, that's just on the rocks.
Vermouth? That's good. I approve of that. I do think a sweet vermouth to make a Manhattan is not a bad thing every now and then, but I also am a rocks guy.
Nice. I am drinking
urine.
Mountaineer goat.
You're drinking urine.
Yeah, Mountaineer goat
water.
Piss. There you go.
Water. Water is my friend. It is hot up here. For once.
Well, hi Ari. It's great to have you with us.
You too, Joe. It's good to see you again.
You know, I'm psyched that Daryl is on because it leads right into our hypocrisy topic. Because I want to talk about Daryl's uncle Rick Perry, former governor of Texas.
Oh my God. Oh, jeez.
I don't know if you guys saw, but Rick Perry wrote an open letter, an editorial in the Washington Post, talking about decriminalizing some psychedelics for treatment of depression and PTSD. That Rick Perry. He did not. And, you know, as always happens with politicians who become in favor of decriminalizing, is he has a family member who was personally affected and needed that, needs the meds or is being treated well by these meds. So it's a perfect example of politicians being hypocrites, and that's my lead in to your lead in, Dave.
Yeah. So this week's topic is political hypocrisy. Basically, when a party takes members of the party, especially the politicians within the party, um, uh, have positions that contradict their stated beliefs. Um, and first I want to focus on the Democratic side because we can say we're doing both sides of ism here, but hypocrisy is rife within politics. So it's good to point out we have two major parties in this country, two major parties that are making all of the policy for our country right now. Um, so we'll look at the we'll look at the Republicans in a little bit. We'll focus on the Democrats to start off with.
And I
So,
got some libertarian hypocrisy stories.
oh
to tell
yeah,
as
there's
well.
lots of libertarian hypocrisy.
Oh,
too.
lots.
Oh, oh, don't you?
Yeah. But
I
so let's
think we
start
all
with
do.
war and foreign policy. So the Democrats, many of them position themselves as being anti-war and favoring diplomacy first, or having more of a strong diplomatic background when it comes to international relations. But
Yeah.
we can go chapter and verse on both Joe Biden and Barack Obama, even Bill Clinton, attacking countries that without a declaration of war. Yeah, we're using the authorized use of military force in the case of Obama and Biden, but attacking countries. It's frustrating to see, and I know that we have these. There's always those memes when we change administrations, especially in the libertarian circles, where it's the reemergence of the anti-war Democrats or the reemergence of the anti-war Republicans. And it happens every time we change administrations. We see the opposition become more anti-war. But even now we're seeing Democrats were all okay about most of the Democrats establishment.
Your audio just went, Dave.
What's that?
Okay,
Oh, you're back. You're back.
went away for a
There
second.
you go.
Administration's coming in on us, or they're trying to shut us down. But
Yep.
we have plenty of examples where we're in this case, and when it comes to war and foreign policy, the Democrats do not hold to their stated positions.
Well, I
Um,
mean, what do you think their position is here? Because the Democrats have always been the war party, right?
I mean, we're talking about their stated beliefs to be more anti-war and more
But
pro diplomacy,
do they claim to be more anti-war?
and not anti-war in the sense of libertarians, but they're more favored in the diplomacy. Their stated belief is more in the diplomacy. Now, and we can see.
I don't know what evidence there is towards that.
No, and that's why it's a
There is none.
hypocritical position.
No, I mean even in their position, right? I don't think that. First of all, I don't think Republicans have a stated position of, well, we'll go to war at the drop of a hat. But I think that both
They're
sides.
much more might makes right, no diplomacy or little diplomacy.
Yeah, I mean,
We don't negotiate with terrorists.
But I think Democrats completely agree with that. I think that's general American foreign policy. I mean,
the Democrats have been more anti-war than the Republicans, going all the way back to Vietnam. Even with LBJ as president.
Who started the Vietnam War?
Of course, but
right,
I mean,
Democrats.
You're taking a 1960s political party and applying 2025 political.
Well, that 1960s political party was the Republican Party, right? Reagan was a Kennedy Democrat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I just don't think that the Democrats have any firm commitment to non-interventionism. I mean, if anything, it's the Republicans who actually claim to be non-interventionists, right?
Some of them.
Yeah, some of them.
I mean, It's Rand Paul and Tom Massey, and
you
sometimes.
never
like
hear
a handful of Republicans. But you look
Yeah.
at the origins of what was the Republican Party before the flip, like
Should have been.
before the Dixiecrats ended up leaving, and it was all based on the expansion of the federal government because of a war. Like the foundations of most of these political parties have come at least the major ones have come at the expense of them spending money on war. I mean, like that's kind of most parties is they make lip service after the fact.
And I will point out that what we're seeing right now in American politics is a massive pole shift within American politics. You're seeing Democrats take Republican positions that
Mm.
they've been forced into, and Republicans take Democratic positions because they're beholden to Donald Trump, who we know that he is
US seal.
much left of let's say the George W. Bush Republican Party.
right.
Yeah.
Very true. Very true.
So I mean,
And in that vein, that's where I'm sort of going to is that if you think about the major actions, certainly you'd have to say Republicans were in charge for both of the Gulf Wars, but Clinton bombed
I mean,
Kosovo.
Clinton enforced the no-fly zone over Iraq. He bombs Bosnia.
Yep.
He bombed Sudan. He bombed Afghanistan.
Yeah, he bombed Serbia
Or Serbia.
over
It's not Bosnia.
over to Monica Lewinsky, right? I mean, that's just
Mm.
crazy.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people say, "Oh, that's not true." Look, it happened the week after, right? The
Exactly.
week
Yeah,
after the dress
Got to
code.
have a distraction,
And look at
Exactly.
look at what happened with Iran. I mean, we'll get to more Republican things, but look what happened with Iran. The week after, Donald Trump is getting beat up all over the place. All of a sudden, we are, the Iran versus Trump battle. We're firing
Yep,
or we're bombing Iran.
yep.
Take that
And
off the headlines.
yeah,
But
there's no question about it. That had a lot to do with the timing of it.
all right, so let's talk about another issue. And I know that we're going to disagree on this one because I mean, I think we know that the mainstream Democrats have been really bad on this issue, but immigration, Democrats tend to hold themselves up as more pro-immigration. We know that in their history, their leadership. You look at what Obama did. Look at what Biden did. He deported more people in his time than any president before him. Obama did the same thing.
Right.
Their feelings and immigration is really kind of switched because you remember back in the 80s when there was that debate between Bush and Reagan during the 80 campaign, where Bush and Reagan talk about immigration being a good thing, bringing new people who want to be here and
Yeah.
the benefits of immigration,
Yeah.
and the Democrats more on the pro labor side came at immigration as being a bad thing because it took jobs from they took our jobs.
They took our
You know,
jobs.
But
Isn't it funny?
but now
Just
they are making noise that they support a more you know trying to protect people who are here legally, and I applaud them for at least coming to that realization. But
Yeah, I do think there is some truth to the idea that during the Biden administration, Democrats tried to pass reasonable immigration reform and were stymied because Trump told the Republicans to block it,
yes,
and they
yeah.
did.
And the immigration reform was still rather anti-immigration when you think about
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
I mean,
no,
it wasn't like a as libertarians we're more
right. Democrats are not even
let
proposing going back
people
to
in.
an Ellis Island style, where you could show up and go through an inspection and come
Yes.
through,
Yeah.
which I think that's what a lot of people think we should be at. I mean, some people are in favor of freer, and some people are in favor of more restrictions. Bernie Sanders, of course, is very much in favor of quotas because he is such a pro-labor guy. You know, his argument is that American companies will use cheap, undocumented labor to avoid paying American workers full price. I don't think that he's wrong. I just don't think that that is a good reason to curtail somebody's liberty in allowing them to travel for opportunity.
Absolutely.
The one that I want to talk about, some of the worst hypocrisy, is during a presidential campaign in 2008, not that long ago, both Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama said that marriage is between a man and a woman. And 4 years later, they said, "Oh, no, we don't believe that anymore. Now we support
in that position,
marriage
which
equality."
you know.
So here's the thing: they didn't fucking evolve. They
politician.
didn't think it was a politically smart thing to say, which is the worst hypocrisy. So they threw their own supporters under the bus. They lied about what they actually believed to the American public so that they could get elected.
And they didn't. And when you think about it, as you know, pro GSM, the Democrats hold themselves out to be, they didn't do a damn thing. I mean, there are some states that did a few things, but really what ended up being the courts doing the thing.
Right. Right. And the thing is, too, like, the Democrats had the 2008 election in the bag. I mean, I do think Barack Obama is a singular candidate in American history, but overall, through American history, a party that has held the White House for 8 years does not get reelected. It's only happened once since Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who got reelected himself.
And was a one-term president.
Right, exactly. Truman
we couldn't get 12 years on that one because people got frustrated with George W. Bush.
Right, exactly. Even though Bush, in many ways, his 4 years is some of the best years for any American president. Balances the budget, wins a war, couldn't have done a better job, and yet voted out.
Well, because there was a big economic crash in '92. I mean,
there was an economic crash because he balanced the budget.
And it's timing. It was all timing. Like you.
Well, there was more. I remember at that time, you know, when he said the Operation Desert Storm, you know, his approval rating went to something like 92%. Right. And 18 months later, I think it was at 26% because he made the mistake of saying, you know, hear what I'm saying, you know, no new lips, read my taxes. And
that's exactly it. And it was the hypocrisy that killed him.
It was
that he did indeed say, right, read my lips, no new taxes. Then he gets this crazy deal with the Democrats in Congress where if he agrees to raise taxes this one time, they will agree to a balanced budget for the next 10 years. And Bush is like, I will take that. I will fall on that sword.
And we didn't get a balance. Well, we got a balanced budget within 10 years.
No. It was the reason why we had a surplus at the end of 10 years was because we had 10 years of a balanced budget.
Yeah.
And that's just the way a balanced budget works. If you have a balanced budget, eventually you end up with a surplus because you don't accrue any more debt and you keep paying down the interest.
Yeah.
Which is America could do this right now, right? We could say, but Trump doesn't want to do that. Again,
he's going to add $4 trillion. He's adding $4 trillion onto the deficit with this big bloated bill. But
exactly.
All right, here's another area of hypocrisy within the Democratic Party. And this is not really so much legislation, but how they support their members. The Me Too movement and sexual assault allegations.
Yep.
They were very much in the corner of sexual assault allegations, but they ignore Bill Clinton. They ignore, in fact, attack people who had verifiable evidence on Bill Clinton. They attack people who had evidence on Cuomo. Yeah.
Cuomo is about as creepy a guy as you can get who's not in jail.
Oh my God,
And
that picture of him with that
yep,
intern, that look on her face was
yep,
holy
absolutely.
shit.
Exactly. And yet he is able to use his influence in the party to keep every other mainstream Democrat out of the race, out of the primary race. And so what happens is, a legitimate socialist, and we can talk about Mamandi and a
Mamdani,
different
yeah.
thing, but
Mamdani.
Mamdani, he won the race because Cuomo was terrible,
Yes.
terrible. And so
I mean,
here are all these Democrats saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe what's happening to our party." It's happening because you guys didn't stand up against Cuomo getting the nomination. If you'd run another mainstream Democrat, and Cuomo didn't want another mainstream Democrat in the race because he's like, that mainstream Democrat will pull votes away from me. You know what?
yeah.
It's a ranked choice primary. So he shouldn't have complained about that anyway. But mainstream Democrats, you guys fucked yourselves.
Yes. And honestly, this is a react that the Mamdani election is a reaction to the Democrats overall being so weak in the face of what's going on, not only in Washington, D.C., but in the cities themselves when it comes to ICE enforcement and things like that. There's a reaction, you know, to the let's go back 120 years to the Gilded Age of the United States. We you have these not billionaires, but they're millionaires back at the time, but they have more money than anybody could even fathom back then. They could actually write a check and write off the U.S. debt. People got
Yeah.
tired of people having that level of influence on their country. We're in the same place right now. We're in a new Gilded Age, and people are getting tired of it. And you're seeing kind of this socialist reaction. I mean, think about when the American Socialist Party had its highest powers in the teens. They were electing mayors and governors and things like that.
Mhm.
It was a reaction. We got the Federal Reserve out of that. We got the income tax out of that. We are moving more towards a socialist overreaction to what Trump is bringing us than I think a lot of people are
Yeah.
seeing.
Yeah. No, I definitely am.
That
I'm very
damn,
fearful of that.
Also,
that damn Bolshevik revolution sidelined their
Yeah.
progress.
But what I'm more afraid of is that, if anything, a socialist doesn't a socialist Democratic Party unifies the Republicans much more than it does the Democrats.
Yeah, but in New York City,
Oh yeah, I mean, I think Adams is a lock in New York City now.
which I mean, honestly, if there's a politician that needs to go,
This,
I don't care.
but this is what the Democrats did.
I know, I know. If there's a politician that needs to go, it's Eric Adams. I mean, he's a corrupt. But we are in a. But again, the more that the mainstream Democrats, try and uh, thumb the scales,
Exactly.
the
That's
bigger the
exactly what
reaction
happens.
that you're going to draw. You're driving more and more people over to the socialist side because they're seeing what we think of as the rise of corporate power, and they think that the balance of that is going to be a more socialist state.
Right.
And that's, I mean, I don't want either. I did say overreaction.
yeah, he did say over.
I did a. All right, so the
No,
fourth one, oh no, go ahead. All right.
I was gonna say the fourth one was, at least for me, what I wanted to bring up was how David, like, I don't necessarily like David Hogg, um, but how he ended up getting ousted as vice chair of the DNC.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I completely agree with you because they want younger voices. That's what they've been telling us. They want younger voices. You bring in David Hogg, and I'm not a huge fan of him, but he was talking about doing things like bringing in younger candidates like Mamdani and other
yep,
folks like that.
yep.
And now we've got and now the mainstream Democrats are pushing back against that and favoring old style establishment candidates like Mario or not Mario Cuomo, whatever Cuomo, whichever Cuomo this one is. Andrew Cuomo.
Andrew.
Yeah. Um,
You meant that dynasty?
dynasty. I mean, it really
it's
is.
funny what you just did there. You mentioned Mario Cuomo. Recently, I was having a discussion with someone, and we were talking about Canada, and I mentioned Pierre Trudeau, and they looked at me like,
Yeah.
"Huh?
Oh, yeah,
Who are you
Daddy
talking about?"
Trudeau.
It was weird.
Yeah,
I meant
it is.
Louisiana.
Elliot Trudeau.
Louisiana has it too with the Landrys.
Oh, West Virginia is rife with it.
There
The
you
the
go.
Capitoes, the Moores. In fact, one of our senators is Shelley Moore Capito. So two of the biggest political families,
All
and the
right.
Rockefellers have been in the state of West Virginia as well.
If you want to talk about it, prior to Donald Trump getting elected, when was the last time we had a presidential election without an incumbent, right? Because incumbent elections are throwaways. When was the last presidential
Ooh.
election without an incumbent
Is
that
that
had
Kennedy Nixon?
neither,
I want to say, I was going to say
let's say
1960.
neither a Bush nor a Nixon
Oh, without
in the race
that would be. Oh shit.
on the
52?
Republican side?
Oh, on the Republican side, Bush, Nixon.
We got to go to 52.
No, Richard Nixon's on that ticket.
So
He's the
48.
vice president.
So you're so it was
No.
60.
Nixon's on
48.
the
No.
ticket in 60.
So 48.
You're
'cause
throwing me here.
that's
Go for it.
Would it been FDR or is it after him?
It
That's-
is, yeah, it is. So
FDR's
the
fourth
last
term.
Republican to win without a Bush
Oh,
or a
win.
Nixon. Sorry, I didn't say win.
Be Hoover.
The last Republican to win without a Bush or a Nixon on the ticket is Herbert Hoover.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the last
Wow.
election before Trump without either a Bush or a Clinton is 72.
McGovern.
76, George Bush Sr.,
Up and out.
80, George Bush Sr., 84, not as an incumbent, 88, George Bush Sr., 92, Bill Clinton, 96, incumbent,
Bill Clinton.
2000, George Bush, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, we're a country of kings and queens.
Political dynasties.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And that's why I am excited for Melania's candidacy.
Okay.
They're
gonna have to change the
don't make me cry.
change the citizenship rules. Well, what I really want is I want Malia Obama against Melania Trump, because I think the M names are going to confuse so many Americans that they won't know what to do. Malia or Melania? Malia, Melania, Malia, Melania, Malia, Melania.
Yeah.
Wow.
People would be pitching a fit.
All
Yep.
right. So my next one is corporate, essentially wealth and corporate power. Democrats have long been critics of wealth and corporate power. They've favored taxes to rein in wealth and corporate power. However, they love wealth and corporate power. They
Well, look how many of them are billionaires.
exactly. They're billionaires.
Yeah.
They even when they put tax increases in, they load those bills with enough write-offs that their class, the wealthy class, doesn't really feel it at all.
Well, I mean, who is the
True.
number one set of donors to the Democratic Party as a profession? It's trial lawyers. Yeah. And so, Democrats make laws, lots of laws that require lawyers, enhance the legal code, et cetera. You want to know why the legal code isn't simplified? It's because lawyers make a lot of money and they run for office and donate to political candidates. It's
That's
in many
why.
ways,
It's why when they examine the federal laws and regulations, they can't count the number of federal laws. Like there's no way to count them because they're too fucking many.
Right. And it's funny because there was a talk that, we would put a sunset on every law in the American code system. And
That'd be
say,
nice.
okay, so some of them have 20 years, maybe we'll give some of them 40 years, whatever are, put a sunset. And so just say the law has to be renewed if it's appropriate. And if it's not appropriate, then it won't get renewed. And the nice thing about that is
brilliant.
that if we have a split Congress, chances are pretty good a lot of laws aren't going to get renewed. But that's good because most laws are stupid.
Although, I mean, we do have it somewhat. I mean, when you talk about like the Patriot Act and the USAA Protection Act or whatever those things are called, those end up. I mean, it doesn't really matter who's in power. They're just like, yeah, that's kind of cool. We'll keep that going. No
Yeah,
matter how much Rand Paul may filibuster, um, that stuff passes.
yep. No, it's true. And it's another great example of the one thing that there is always bipartisan agreement on is the
Giving the president more power.
giving the president more power, and because power is a closed system, right? In physics we have this idea of a closed system. Power can never be created; it just moves from one place to another. It's like that in politics too, and all power derives from the people. In our system, the American system, the only way the president or Congress get more power is to take it away from the people. And
Yes.
so the one thing that bipartisan agreement on is taking rights away from the people. And so if we talk about some of the online protection acts, uh, the online piracy acts, things like that, those are perfect examples of the government saying rewarding. Ralph Nader said it best, right? Republicans and Democrats compete to serve their corporate masters.
Yes.
The government rewarding their big donors by saying, "Oh yeah, we're going to make it illegal to download."
Yeah, think about like FOSTA and SESTA. I mean, they're the same
Exactly.
thing. They are
Yeah.
just screwing people's rights to engage, regardless of whether you want
Screwing.
that. Yeah, to screw. I mean, honestly, or companionship in general. Just, I mean, even if you don't want to take part in it, it doesn't mean that you should reign over anybody else's life to be able to do that type of stuff, to prevent them from doing that type of stuff. As long as it's
This
consenting and
would
as
be
long
this
as
would be
they
something that
agree.
Mercy would definitely love talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we've done some Democrat, and there are plenty of other issues that the Democrats are hypocrites about, and we know about that. But let's talk about some of the Republican hypocritical positions that they take. Let's talk
We're going to build a
fiscal.
wall, and Mexico will pay for it.
Well, part of it. I mean,
Mm.
that's part of it. We talked about immigration, but let's talk about fiscal responsibility.
Yes.
Oh.
The
Oh, my heavens.
Republicans have
Oh.
long taught. When I was back in the day when I was a Republican, back in when George Bush was running for president, the people kept telling me we're small government conservatives. We want to shrink the size of the federal government down to, and I kept waiting for it to happen. Like that was what brought me in. I'm like, yeah, we should probably shrink this down because it's a little too unwieldy. We got too many laws. We got too many. We're trying to do too much. We're not really doing anything well. So let's kind of rein this in and reset the government and figure out how to do that. That never happened. In fact, government grew exponentially under the
Worse.
Bush administration. I mean, we talk about the expansion of Medicare and Medicaid. We talk about No Child Left Behind. We talk about the war, the Patriot Act. All of that stuff happened under George W. Department of Homeland Security, a very new government agency. We're taking off our shoes at the airport. We're taking off our belts at the airport, the TSA. I mean, there was nothing small government about the Bush administration. You can make that point.
Nope.
Yeah, we were fighting a war against terrorism. Okay, but me taking my shoes off at the airport. Here's the thing I never understood. They did that in response to a guy who tried to light his shoes and had some C4 in his shoes. Why didn't we have to take off our underwear at the airport when the underwear bomber tried to do his thing?
Oh, are we not supposed to? I've been hearing that.
I've been going commander of the airport for years.
That's the scanners.
You mean I have to quit doing that?
I generally put it into one of the little containers.
Just hold it up like
Well,
that and just drop it in.
I mean, but
Sorry.
Sometimes I'll take
Dave,
a
you
little
do the one by
Nutella
Gerald.
beforehand.
But Dave, you're nailing it here. Let's go back before even George H.W. Okay, I'm just out of college and Reagan is president, and I see for the first time in 30 years the tax code is
Yeah.
shrunk, And he's always talking about small government and how government's the problem. And I'm like, this is great. And I loved it. And I think that's what captured me at the time as a Republican. But what just drove me nuts from there going forward, every 4 years, okay, I'll focus on that. I would watch who's running for president. And I might look and say, oh, I like this guy, or I like her. That's their best candidate. And it was always, in my mind, their best liberty person. And they always ended up like 4th or 5th place and being eliminated.
Yeah.
Right. And so they end up nominating my 4th or 5th choice. And it's constantly discouraging. And I wondered, where the hell was this party going?
Establishment
It wasn't
protects
until
itself.
Yeah, it does.
Until
it does. It's kind of built in. They make sure that. But when 2016 happened and I saw Trump was the imminent nominee, I was done. I'm out of here. That party didn't even look like what it was in 1982. And so I was gone. It was time to move on. And, you could see so many contradictions, so much hypocrisy in that party in that 45
Yeah, I mean,
year
you got people who would talk about they would talk a good game about small government politics, but really ended up kowtowing to the religious right to to force to end abortions and things like that, and all the anti freedom initiatives that the religious right were all about back in that day. Yeah, but it continues. The party of small government. This bill that they're passing, yeah, they're gutting big things in government, but they're not codifying what Doge has done, which I'm okay with that because that was half-assed. But they're gutting Medicare, Medicaid. They're gutting the things that help everyday people. And are they great? Not always, but these are things that help everyday people. And they're funneling more money to the Department of Defense, as always. They are funneling more money to their corporate billionaire backers.
I want to quickly circle back to what you were talking when you were talking about the TSA. The TSA itself is incredibly hypocritical.
Yes, AJ.
Because you know who doesn't have to go through TSA? People who fly private. Now, that's crazy, right? Why is it that only the poor people have to go through TSA?
I mean, you can make the argument about size of the aircraft, but again,
but you can take a private plane and load it full of explosives, right?
Sure.
Well, Dan's right. You could drive in. You could fly in. You could fly in a private plane, and if you really were resourceful, you could have a nuke.
You're not
far off, Joe. I mean, look at driving
ammonium nitrate.
Tim McVeigh drove a big ass box truck, and box trucks aren't huge, but you fill it full of ammonium nitrate and other accelerants, and you can do a lot of damage.
Oh, we're off YouTube.
Oh, hell yeah.
But no, I'm just saying that we attack on the airline. It was kind of a Katie bar the doors, but the horses were already out. We already had 9/11.
Yep.
We're not seeing TSA capture a bunch of people. I would say that after 9/11,
TSA has not thwarted one terrorism.
Yeah. In fact, there have been several times people have gotten weapons through.
I was going to say not only they haven't stopped any terrorist attacks, but they have stolen over 3,000 laptops.
Yes. Yeah.
And looked at a guy's phone that had a picture of JD Vance on it.
And they look at our naked butts going through the scanners. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean,
and I feel for those people. When I go through the scanner, I think to myself, I'm walking through this thing. These poor people, they have to view this.
You're looking at this body, man.
Exactly.
Suckers.
Talking about hypocrisy, I wanted to mention one more thing. We're looking at some big things here, this party, that party, and when it happened. Then we can also look at it very small, individually. And the example I'm going to use is this. Everybody and his brother who loves liberty seems to love Thomas Massey. And I'm one of those people too. I love how he insists people should read the bills. And if the bills are too long, he's just voting no because he knows there's something unsavory in there. And that's great. But I was so damn disappointed in 2020, last year, 2024, sorry. And he comes out at the end and he endorses Trump. And I'm like, what the hell are you thinking?
Well, and
it kind of went.
Guys like Rand Paul, all the Liberty folks. I mean, he rubber stamped all of Trump's first administration nominees, and he rubber stamped all of his second administration nominees, which is by far the least qualified cabinet to have ever, even in third world kleptocracies, military juntas. The cabinets there are far more qualified to do what they're doing.
There's nobody who would. There's no country in the world that would have appointed somebody. Well, I don't know. Maybe in some of the monarchies, like I think about some of the Saudi relatives who get cabinet positions. But Pete Hegseth is so unbelievably unqualified for his position.
Yes.
It's
Kristi Noem is vastly unqualified for her position.
Well, are you referring to the puppy killer?
Puppy side.
Yes.
Right.
It's.
I mean, she is. She at least was elected governor, right? So somewhere people made a decision to
by
elect
about 5 people in South Dakota.
Yes.
And they obviously didn't know her.
No, right. Exactly.
She was moderately attractive.
And they approved of everything she did.
It was before the dog thing came out.
She was moderately attractive, and I think some guys voted with her wang.
You're right. I mean, let's not gloss over that. She's not moderately attractive, right?
Well, she's getting
makes herself up very nicely.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. So Dan, so she's reasonably good looking.
She's getting worse with the Botox, though.
I mean, that's
everybody looks worse with the Botox.
That's the ageism talking there.
Yeah, she needs to give that up.
I mean,
it looks kind of.
It is hard to age gracefully. Not everybody can do it like I have. But the truth of the matter is that Hegseth, right? He has the German army tattoo on his chest. He couldn't even make it past. I'm trying to remember what rank he was, but he wasn't a commander. He didn't rise up the ranks. He was not deemed to be a good leader.
Yeah, he was not an officer.
He was an officer, but
was he an officer?
I think he was. I
thought
he was
commissioned or NCO.
I thought he was a. He ended up as like a lieutenant, but I could be wrong. ChatGPT will know, or our guest could look it up for us.
Let's go and invite our guests to look it up for us.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, he was a major.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, but he, but that's a great example, right? Major is a washout degree, a washout position. If you were on your way to the top, you usually make it to at least colonel. Now,
and he was commissioned as a second lieutenant, so I mean, it wasn't like he rose real far.
No, and I mean, to be fair, his education is top notch, right? Princeton and Harvard. But
he went to a lot of keg parties.
Let's
just say.
I mean, dude, that's what Princeton is. Princeton is all the New Jersey people who couldn't party hard enough to go to Rutgers. I said that for my brother. And listening to the show.
Nice.
But Hegseth has never led anything, right? He's never had any executive position, anything like that. And now he is running the largest corporation in the world, the U.S. military.
Yep.
No wonder it's such a disaster.
And wait, look.
I meant the hilarity of the stuff at the military parade with Palantir. Advertisements.
Awful.
And I'd like to be fair. I know Pete Hegseth, and I was in the Signal chat with him.
Exactly.
We went over all the war plans.
Exactly.
I think we were all in the Signal chat with him.
Right.
All right. So second area that we see a lot of hypocrisy from Republicans very, very clear is on law and order. So they
Yep.
hold themselves out as the law and order party, and that you should do what the government says,
Yes.
and you should support the police. But then they looked the other way when it came to January 6th. In fact, Pam Bondi just
Mhm.
fired any prosecutor that was involved in a January 6th case, where the it's a you will support the police as long as they're doing what we want them to do, whether it's kidnapping our
Kind
citizens
of
off
like
the
the ICE
streets
agent.
or shaking down trans kids trying to run in a track meet, or whatever the Daddy Trump wants you to rein people in on.
Yep. You got to get your ICE agents out there being your Nazi SS Gestapo, and that's what they are for
Yeah,
Trump.
it is a secret police. They're putting masks on their face. This is a textbook
Mhm.
definition of a secret police.
Yep.
Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and
There was this thing that I ended up reading, and I love this guy.
Major
I would
brother
love to be
man.
able to recommend
yes.
him here because he is a history professor from Delaware. He writes. His name is Steve Newton. I love the ever living crap out of him. Um, and his thing is called American Samizdat, and it was the counter to the Russians. It was a writing on it was writings by people who ended up not supporting the Communist Party. But they've had here
Oh,
a
interesting.
whole culture of reporting people. And I've likened it more to what happened in Soviet Russia because they literally had a division in Soviet Russia that was meant for people to rat on their neighbors.
Yeah,
And
and we see that too.
they
We're seeing it now.
mhm,
Yes.
mhm,
You suspect your
DEI,
neighbor is here
anything that's
illegally? Call
DEI.
the ICE line.
Yep.
Yes.
I mean, it started with Dare. Dare was the initial snitch line.
Yeah. I mean, America's right.
Got to condition them. Got to condition
America's
them.
law enforcement has been, one of spying on your neighbors and weaponizing the police to go after whoever you want. And it's been very few politicians who have stood up and said, no, we're not going to do it this way. We're going to try to keep the law above politics. And, you go all the way back to Nixon and J. Edgar Hoover. That's very funny, Daryl.
That's good.
J. Edgar Hoover being used by Nixon to go after political enemies who were drug
Hippies
dealers.
and brown people.
Exactly. Right.
That's why we have drug war.
Used it to go after civil rights movement. It's been, there are very few people who remember that there was a time when we didn't call police officers law enforcement officers. We called them peace officers.
Yep.
And it's a very different thing.
It's to me, it's
Laws
like
require law enforcement, which requires force. And anybody who's in favor of making more laws is going to saying, I'm making these laws knowing that we're going to have to use law enforcement and we're going to have to use force to place them. And so the idea that, we're going to make a more peaceful society by making more laws that benefit, 3 strikes and you're out, right? Great
yeah.
example. The fact of, and we get mocked around the world for this. There's an excellent episode of QI for people who haven't watched QI. Can't recommend it enough on YouTube. But where they talk about the fact that an African American man who's 18 years old is more likely to be in jail than in prison. And our prisons.
Wait a minute. You said more likely to be in
Sorry,
The
jail.
local lockup.
I meant in jail than in college. I'm
Oh,
sorry. Yeah, I
Okay,
said in
thank you.
jail than in prison.
Thank you.
No,
You
in
did
jail
actually.
than in college. There are, we have more people incarcerated than any country on the planet.
yes.
And when you
By
have
far.
more people than China in any category, you're doing it wrong. Or I guess India now, right? Because India is the most populous nation in the world.
Yeah, they're
But
close.
it's right. 1 and 1A.
And I think we might be even to a point where we're like both of them. I mean, because we have like 25% of the world's prison population.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's pretty
it's
crazy.
ridiculous. And people have said, well, China executes a lot of its prisoners. And if you go through the records of Chinese executions, I think there's like 100 executed every year in China.
Right.
You know, it doesn't add up. The math don't math.
Yep.
Now, you can say that China's repressive system prevents a lot of crimes, and you can make that case, but still, there are too many damn laws on the books for in the United States. And
Mhm.
and the disparity of how crimes are enforced, which, you know, I think is the reason why all of us on this broadcast are,
Right.
you know, we believe in we've got to balance the books, and we've got to remove laws, and we've got to make it more colorblind than what it is right now,
Well,
because the
and
enforcement is so disparagingly
but
inaccurate.
that is somewhat of the problem in that, the 3 strikes and you're out law was an attempt to make it more impartial. But what it did was it made it impartial and incredibly harsh, and it took the
Yes,
justice out of the justice system.
exactly.
And we had a system where justice made the most sense, and really, it really did have a lot to do with the war on drugs, right? Because not only,
Liberty Twitcher, it is the drug war. That's where the laws are not enforced equally. Absolutely, right there, 100%.
well, I would
And you
argue,
can go through other laws as well, but the you want to talk about law unequal enforcement of laws, traffic laws too.
yeah,
Absolutely, traffic laws are
Driving
unevenly
while
enforced.
black.
yeah, exactly. If you look at the number of people, the contact reports, and then the number of people who actually get tickets and get arrested, there's an incredible racial disparity.
Yeah,
Um, and what's interesting is that you see other things too, where uh, laws being enforced have a lot to do with your ability to pay and fight along the way. Sometimes it's racism, sometimes it's wealth. Uh, there's
yeah.
a lot of, there's a tremendous amount of evidence on this.
Brown and green, brown and green.
Yeah,
Well, it's one of the things I want to bring up is the lead up to the queer rights movement was literally how the law was applied to queer folks.
Yes,
Um, indecent. It was indecent.
exposure,
not
No,
even
no, not
indecent exposure.
indecent
It
exposure.
was
lewd behavior.
Yeah,
yeah,
it was
lewd
one
and
of those
lascivious.
things where the law itself in New York ended up being unevenly applied, and it was literally or it was one of those moral laws that they used against my community.
And
And the
last night was the 56th anniversary of the start of the Stonewall riots.
that was the 26th.
56th,
Oh, yeah, it was the 56th.
so
But the
69. Yeah,
Stonewall riots was an uneven enforcement of this decency law that was applied to my community, and how the cops interpreted it against, you know, people like myself who are queer was something that led up to and caused the Stonewall riots, because we had to play with the mob, because to be able to have and serve drinks to queer folks was deemed by this law to be illegal. The enforcement by the police was as such that, we got thrown in jail. We got Even before that, like in Compton Street cafeteria riots, we got targeted just for being able to wear different clothing, or putting on wigs,
or
or doing
well, I mean,
drag.
the FBI would go after federal
Yep.
employees.
Lavender
That
scare.
yeah, the Lavender Scare. I mean, absolutely the unequal treatment, and I, I've said this several times before that the greatest advancements in human history have come from our breaking of laws, our
Yep.
non-compliance with laws rather than an adherence to laws. Whether you're talking about Jesus flipping the tables, or you're talking about kids going down to Alabama and Mississippi to register people to vote. Whether you talk about Civil War, or you talk about Stonewall being a riot,
Yep.
it's a fight back against the law and order of this country that has served us far better than just completely going along with the whatever the state says.
Liberty Twitcher's giving me a softball. I'm going to hit it out of the park.
You do that.
It's absolutely not possible that people based on race, first of all, race isn't real, right? Race is just a social construct. You can't draw blood from somebody and know that they're black or Asian or anything else. Race is just a social construct. Then the idea that certain people commit a disproportionate amount of certain crimes, that's has nothing to do with what a person looks like and why the law is biased against them. Now, if you want to say we find that poor people commit more robberies than wealthy people, that is statistically true. It just so happens that there's a relationship between how much you need something and your likelihood to be involved in theft. However, you can't see whether or not somebody is poor just by looking at them. And you can't assume that black people are poor or more likely commit crimes just because they're black. And there's a large example. Go ahead, Dave.
Look at cannabis enforcement before we started doing a whole lot of large scale legalization efforts. That white people and black people, we tend to use cannabis in the same amount. But the enforcement, the people going to jail for cannabis use were predominantly and by a large unnatural number.
6 times as likely.
Yeah, 6 times as likely to go to jail. Some of the people that were in jail for for cannabis crimes, their decades for relatively low level cannabis crimes. The if you're going to see a cop car, where's that cop car usually sitting? You made a good point earlier, Dan, talking about peace officers. I've always wanted the enforcement of crime to be more like the fire department. I think the police should be more like the fire department, that if there's a crime committed, you call them out and they do the investigation and make the arrest, rather than them sitting everywhere and trying to find crime and trying to.
Well, more than that, the idea that they have quotas that they have to meet, certain number of people they have to arrest, certain number of speeding tickets they have to give out, things like that. A lot of law enforcement has to do with the community that is not in the political majority.
Yes.
Because political power is used to create laws to curtail behaviors that, for one reason or another, the political majority finds either a threat to their way of life or offensive in some manner. But the fact of the matter is that that's not, laws aren't meant to curtail personal liberties. And people try to use laws, as Ari was pointing out, to curtail people's behavior in public, which isn't what laws are for. It's not our rights are not given to us by laws. Our rights are not given to us by the Constitution. Our rights are natural rights, and the Constitution is a set of instructions telling government not to interfere with our rights. The First Amendment, Congress shall make no laws. The Second Amendment, shall not infringe. The Fourth Amendment, the people shall have the rights to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures.
Yeah. All right, so let's get through a couple
And, you know,
more. A couple more examples. Let's talk about family values and morality. Another big area where the Republicans want to tell us that they're the family values party.
Uh,
I'd like to comment on this,
Yeah,
if
I mean,
I may.
they've
You know, the Republicans have always been the party of family values. That's why they elected this rapist as president of the United States. I just want to put it out there one more
Right.
yes.
time.
Right. He's on his third marriage.
Third
oh
marriage.
no, it's more.
And it's not even just that. It's, you know, not just Trump. I mean, think about Newt Gingrich, who long an opponent of marriage equality, divorced his wife while she was battling cancer, and I think he's on his third wife.
There is a friend of mine, Joe Nelms. You can look him up on IMDb. Involved in some good movies. But back in the day, he was an ad guy on Madison Avenue, and the iPhone had just come out, and he's like, it's a gold mine, right? 99 cents if you can for every app if you can sell it. So he invented an app called Scandal, and all it did was send you an alert if a Republican who had voted for anti-gay measures or pro-family measures was then caught in a gay scandal.
Nice.
He sold it for 99 cents because that's what everything sold for in the Apple store, and he made $35,000 before Apple pulled it, saying this isn't a real app. And it's true.
It is a real app.
Well,
Yeah,
Come on.
Right. I mean,
it's a notification app, just like a news app.
People wanted to pay for it, exactly. And he had like 3 notifications go off. What was Packard?
Toe tapping?
Yeah, toe tapping Ted Packard.
No, the Packard was a different one. That was Larry Craig was the toe tapper.
Okay. But you know, he had 3 scandals go off during his time before they pulled the app. But
which I think it's probably more to the fact that he was revealing connected political. It was probably political pressure that got the app pulled rather than.
Probably. Who knows? I mean, he didn't care. He got to keep his money.
Yeah.
But it was that level of hypocrisy is just rampant, and it goes to the fundamental problem, right? We're talking about hypocrisy in politicians. Politicians only care about 3 things: getting elected, getting reelected, and getting elected to higher office. And they'll do anything they have to make that happen. Look at Rick Santorum, right? Rick Santorum, Mr. Hardcore conservative, originally elected as a Democrat.
Yeah.
What happened, right? How could you go from being a Democrat to...
It was a sweater vest.
Exactly.
You know, it's interesting you say that, Dan. I'm not sure I remember that part. I remember the first time he was elected to Congress as a Mount Lebanon, Pittsburgh suburb Republican. He was a Republican. If he was elected before that as a Democrat, I wasn't aware.
But
I'm pretty sure.
Well, and here's another, I mean, massive example of it.
But you're nailing it.
Well, another massive example of the right claiming these, you know, the moral high ground. Think of how much they've put on trans and drag story hour, talking about how it influences our kids, and every time I see,
I'm wrong. Rick was always a Republican.
It's some kids getting molested. It's a Republican. It's a coach. It's somebody in the church. Like, I've never seen a drag queen molest a child, and I'm not going to say that it's never happened before, but we're not seeing it.
You sure don't hear about it.
There is.
You know, it's usually
there's a woman who I follow on TikTok, and she is a lawyer. She tracks all of those cases, and I think I've been following her for about 4 years now.
Yeah, she's wonderful.
There was out of the multiple years that she has been doing this, there has been one trans person. One. It happens.
Who is this?
I'll have to get you the link. She's on TikTok.
Yeah, she is on
Okay.
TikTok.
Well, I'm not there.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not there.
I'm
But she's
I'm not
she's
there
wonderful. She's
either,
got like
but
this database, this whole database.
I'm not on TikTok. I don't even chap snat.
Snapchat. No, I love her. The other one that I love is remember with the RNC and Grinder?
Ah, yeah. I mean,
Oh,
whenever the RNC
Who
or
was that?
CPAC is over at the, which I find, kind of funny. They go to the Gaylord Center over at over by Dan in National Harbor.
National Harbor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they blow up the Grinder servers.
So the Pennsylvania politician I was thinking of who switched parties, Arlen Specter.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Arlen
he went back
Specter.
to.
Oh, yes,
Yeah, changed from
absolutely.
Republican to Democrat.
Yeah, he was originally Democrat. You're absolutely
Elizabeth
right, Dan.
Warren was a registered Republican. Daryl's
Who'd have thunk?
uncle, Rick Perry, was originally elected to the Texas legislature as a Democrat.
Yeah, I mean, I
lots
could
of
see.
examples.
I can see back in the day, like Texas was a blue state. Then you're gonna like here in West Virginia. I'm sure there's Democrats that are Republicans now, that were once Democrats, and
Yep.
I
mean, it's true. It's true that sometimes some people actually remain consistent to their principles, and because the party shifts, they change.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Hillary
the guy
Clinton
from Westboro Baptist Church, the guy from that founded Westboro Baptist Church, used to be a Democrat civil rights lawyer, and he was able to use and wield his power as a lawyer. And when he switched over and started to do all those protests, he would sue people. He turned into a Republican. He ended up suing people who quote unquote assaulted him, and it could be anything that he thought up of. Most of their money ended up coming from lawsuits.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
I had no idea,
Yeah.
Ari. Interesting.
Well,
All right.
in the comments, somebody mentioned Michael Bloomberg, also Democrat to Republican to Independent to Democrat.
Yeah, and it happens. I mean, I get that some politicians feel that the party left them, and we've heard that before.
Right. I mean, Reagan is the best example of that.
Yeah, Reagan
left the
Democrat.
Democrats.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
he left the Democratic Party.
It isn't just Reagan now. Let's look more recently. How many libertarians bailed on that old damaged party because it completely shifted into something
Yeah, because it shit
horrendous?
the bed.
Me being one.
I mean, I left.
Yeah.
I left in May of 22 when that convention
Well,
started. And I saw that the
did you leave though? Are you still registered as a libertarian?
no, I'm a GDI.
Oh hell no.
GDI, goddamn
I will
independent.
never.
Yeah,
Nice.
nonpartisan
never be
nonpartisan affiliation is what it's called.
associated with the Libertarian Party.
Go ahead, Ari.
I mean, I left at the exact same time too, and I think we all know why I did.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
I am still a registered libertarian. I want the things that we get, like ballot access and stuff like that, and it matters in Maryland.
Yeah, I mean, I would if I mean, I will vote for a libertarian.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm also
I mean,
finding
look
myself
at
voting
last year.
for non-libertarians a lot now.
Look, last year I voted for Chase Oliver,
Yes.
Libertarian. He beat the Libertarian Party at their own game. They did not want him. They never supported him. And he was the best candidate running for president. And I am proud to this day I voted for him.
I voted for Chase. I didn't have Vermin on my ballot, and he wasn't a write-in. So I voted for Chase. I voted for Erica Kolenich, the Libertarian Party governor candidate. But I found, not that I had that many other choices, but it was hard to pick any other. I probably voted more Democrat on that ballot than I ever have in my life. So,
understandably, this
yeah,
year.
and it not that it really matters anymore in West Virginia. I could have 10,000 votes at my disposal, throw them all towards the Democratic candidate, and they'd still fall like 50,000 votes short.
But also, I mean, West Virginia, right? Even moderate Republicans in West Virginia oppose brushing your teeth. Support.
I mean, I oppose brushing teeth. I mean, fuck that. Fuck.
That's why Vermin Supreme needs to come through there. But
we do need Vermin.
Exactly.
it is
Exactly.
interesting. Like if you live in a very red state, you probably get some very conservative Democrats, like your former senator.
Joe Manchin, yeah.
Yeah. And the
And
same
Joe
way,
became more conservative as time went along because the state was pulling him that way.
yep.
Um,
And you know, Massachusetts and California elect pretty moderate Republicans. California less so, but Massachusetts, you know, you look at a Bill Weld or a Charlie Baker, you know, those guys,
Mhm.
you know, they would be Democrats in any red state. So there is sort
I
of a fluid
we
line.
had John Bel Edwards in Louisiana. Like he started inching to the right. Like he ended up supporting the teachers unions, but then on certain things like abortion and gun rights, he was basically almost in lockstep with the Republicans. Like in
actually,
some of these
Yeah.
states, yeah, it's really interesting.
I've got the
Well,
biggest
you
example
you
of a party switcher here in West Virginia. Jim Justice was elected as a Democrat in
Yep.
2016, and became friends with Donald Trump and saw how the state was going, and he switched to. In fact, he proposed one of the largest tax increases in the history of West Virginia in his first State of the State address as a Democrat, and then became a Republican. Still, kind of a big government guy. I mean, he's a big guy anyway, but you know, he's essentially Trump. I mean, he's
Yeah.
that's he's a
Tax and
Trump
spend.
Republican.
I'm going to
Yeah,
point back
Texas
to that
been
last
Republican.
one and just mention too Hillary Clinton was a Goldwater girl
Yeah,
back in the
Wow.
day.
yeah. All right.
well, here's another one I'll throw out. I remember Republican Michelle Bachmann, as nuts as she was. But if you go back to the late 70s, she's campaigning for Jimmy Carter. You know,
Yep.
totally
Well, I
switched.
think she just
And
went nuts. I think she
well, she
yeah.
Well,
did. Once she became a
what
Republican,
happens?
it was
It's the same thing. They want to get elected, reelected, and elected to higher office. And when they see a better path, and they see a path that involves money,
Easier. Yeah.
exactly. You know, Michelle
Yep.
Bachmann was all about farm subsidies. You know, we have a lot of this ethanol crap that's happening right now is because of Michelle Bachmann, and you know the American farmers who said, "Look, we can get money by making America passing a law that requires ethanol to be put in everybody's gasoline."
Yeah.
In addition, we're going to help out the small appliance industry because we're going to fuck up every lawnmower and every snowblower that has ethanol left in it over off season.
Yeah.
It's just it's
Well, I got
completely
an electric.
ridiculous.
I got an electric
Exactly.
lawnmower. So
Exactly. They'll
all
figure
right.
out a way
So
to.
one more before we get to
All
quizzing
right.
it up. The respect for democratic norms. The by its very definition, a conservative wants to conserve and protect the democratic norms of, or at least the governmental norms of their society. That is kind of the very nature of conservatism. With this this government is very much pissing all over every democratic norm that we've got right now. Um, we're seeing, uh, whether it's attacking the media, which is not necessarily part of the government itself, but it is a very important part of our democracy, or the actual institutions that are girded within our government, the erosion of power of Congress, the rubber stamp that the Supreme Court is giving. It's ugly. And this is certainly not a conservative movement. This is a movement to reshape the country in the image of Donald Trump.
Mm,
yeah,
yeah.
and that's frightening. That's absolutely
Yeah.
frightening.
I
Yes.
mean,
You were
Look
going
at
to
just
ask us
what
about our
happened with
bug out
U.S.
plans.
Steel.
yeah.
Well, you think about it. It wasn't very long ago. Somebody with failed business experience, raping women, all of the things that you can stack up on him, his own felony counts, his insurrection. Somebody would have looked at that candidate and said, this person's unelectable. We can't possibly run this person. and yet
We're
they
on
know
a
what?
ran them
post-truth
again.
society.
We live in a post-truth world. Somebody asked about
Yeah.
an example of unequal law enforcement. I'm going to just say Donald Trump.
Oh shit! Oh my god! Exactly.
Well said.
Yeah.
Straightforward
I mean,
simplification. I
many
love it.
politicians, but definitely
That was
Donald Trump.
Liberty. That was Liberty Twitcher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did pose this question in the green room before we got started tonight. This week has been a bad week for, I would say, the Constitution and democratic governance in the United States,
Yeah.
especially with the Supreme Court decisions. So if things dramatically decline, what is your bug out plan? What country are you going to?
Remember that most countries
Wow.
don't allow immigrants, so it's not like going to the United States,
Yeah.
right? You can't just
Well,
go to
it's not even
Canada.
like going to the United States anymore.
Yeah.
But let's play this for a minute. Let's assume
Let's
do.
let's assume that we all have invaluable skills and are desirable as citizens.
and
I do. I don't know about the rest of you.
Right.
Go for it, Ari.
So this is something that I've been researching for the last several years. I am a queer, disabled, transgender Jew. My backups have backups. Um, so digital nomad visas are accepted in the majority of European Union countries. Being that I have experience in grant writing, I have experience with data analytics. I know how to do grant distribution. I have done work with non-for-profits. The ones that I've been looking for and predominantly have been the Netherlands, and then
Oh, the nether region.
surprisingly is Uruguay.
Very cool.
I
Very
like
cool.
it. I
Well
like
done.
both of those.
You've done some
That's
research.
good.
All right, I'll throw out mine now. I've thought about it for different reasons than Ari's. Ari's are much more thoughtful, much more, important. Mine, I like the beach. So I've looked at the island of St. Lucia, and it looks like a freaking paradise because I hate snow. I hate ice. I hate slush. I hate salt. And in St. Lucia, frickin' year round, low of 75, high of 85 on the frickin' ocean. And it's got gorgeous tropical foliage. It looks like paradise to me. If I could move there and leave the US government behind, I would. But I know nothing about them else other than my own selfish desires.
There you go. Where are you going, Dan?
That is perfectly legitimate.
I think it would have to get pretty bad for me to want to leave because people who haven't lived overseas don't understand that as bad as it is, there is a lot of law and order here that you benefit from on a regular basis. I had an experience once where I was driving home. I was working. I was a teenager, and I was driving home, and a police car started following me. Actually, followed me all the way back to where I worked, and I'm like, "What is going on here?" Like 4 or 5 miles, and it turned out that the officer had worked at the place I worked, and just wanted to come in and say hi to people. He saw the livery and followed me. I went inside and I talked to the secretary, and she's like, "Wow, you were scared because the police car followed you home." She's like, "I'm from El Salvador." Like, when the police follow you, you worry that your life is really in danger. And there are a lot of countries like that. We get to say nice things about Mexico, but there are times when Mexico has a complete failure of law and order.
Yeah,
So I
I
would
think we're
want to,
getting there.
huh?
I think we're getting there.
Well,
I,
I agree with what Dave's saying. When you look at ICE agents whisking away children's and mothers who are not criminals, they're just trying to show up for their immigration hearing, and that's due process. But they're whisking them away, and who
And they may
knows if
not
we'll
even
ever
get due
see them
process.
again.
right.
Yeah, no,
Exactly.
there
So
yeah,
in a
yeah.
lot of ways, we're already
Yeah.
there. The SS
I
is here.
will say briefly, I think people should watch the interview with Kavanaugh about the ruling and his opinion on it. I don't agree with it, but it
Are
is a
you talking about the
small,
birthright citizenship one?
yeah.
Because
It,
I don't think, I mean, I don't think it's on birthright citizenship itself. It's just on the whether courts
well,
can stay stuff.
and that's actually that's sort of a mischaracterization of it as well. What it says is that a U.S. district court cannot issue an injunction that affects the entire country. And that's been
See, I think
used right now for immigration and other things. And Kavanaugh's argument is, and the argument was the Supreme Court is available for emergency relief 365, 24/7. And that if there a case where a national injunction is needed, it should go directly to the Supreme Court right away, that day. A district judge doesn't have the power to do that. And their argument,
But can you do that with the Supreme
you
Court?
should be able to. It's happened twice this year. So two times the Supreme Court has issued emergency injunctions. One had to do with immigration, and I don't remember what the one was. But I recommend people reading Kavanaugh's defense of the decision. And I don't agree with it. I do think that a district court should be able to issue an injunction because people shouldn't have to file in order to be protected by the law, which is
Yeah.
what this causes it to do.
Yeah. I mean,
However,
I think it's gonna jam up the courts. I think there are things that are going to happen that
well, I think I agree. I think that that's what's going to happen is that you're going to find a lot of stuff is now going to be called to the Supreme Court, and then the
yes,
Supreme Court is either going to say no ruling required because that's in this court,
yeah,
or they'll take it and they'll come under consideration and they'll have to make a decision about what they want to do. It's very much a political decision, right?
it is.
Democrats would have done it because they're happy with the district judges right now. On the other hand, there is I can't remember who wrote it, and I disagree with them. I'm going to forget which one of the Republican justices wrote this and said in response to Ketanji Jackson's
Oh,
dissent.
Barrett, Amy Coney
Yeah,
Barrett wrote it.
right, where she said, and supposedly they're great friends. And she said, Justice Jackson opposes an imperial presidency, but she wants an imperial judicial. And I would argue that that is actually where the buck has to finally stop, because in the judicial system, we have hopefully removed politics as much as we possibly can from the system,
Your miles may
right?
vary on that. Yeah.
Well,
Mhm.
I think that we've removed politics because the judges don't want to be elected anymore. They still have political opinions. They still are who they are,
Yeah.
and they get appointed by political people. But I think that I think this last session has shown a lot
There is
more
a level. Yeah.
independence.
I mean,
Yeah,
there is a level of independence within. I mean, even Barrett's shown independence and has gotten in trouble for her
right,
independence.
exactly,
I
right.
think that's
Right.
part of the reason why she's kind of come back to the
Charlie
uh
Kirk called her a DEI hire.
yeah, Jesus Christ.
Well, he's an idiot. We all
He is
know
an
he's an
idiot.
idiot.
Speaking of idiots,
So,
let's prove that we're idiots
well,
by
wait a
taking
minute.
a
I
quiz.
got to give
All right.
Oh,
my
give
bug
yours,
out plan.
your bug
Yeah.
out thing.
So, I've been getting recruited by Canada a lot lately
Yeah,
in my Facebook feed. Canada would be a great option in the fact that I'm a huge hockey fan and
yeah,
I speak at least one of the languages there somewhat well.
yeah.
Um, eh, you know, I, I think if something happens and
Why
the
would they
bad thing
take you?
happens, huh?
How would you? Oh, we're assuming that you can automatically get in.
Yeah.
Okay.
It, if something bad happens, um, and makes travel to Canada a lot harder, I would probably go to the port of Baltimore and take a cruise ship out to Bermuda.
And then transfer to another boat and go to Canada. Not a bad way to
Or
go.
no,
But
just stay in Bermuda. I'm cool with Bermuda. It's in the middle. I mean, middle of the Atlantic. It's
listen, they can never close the Canadian border. Every kid in New England knew
oh,
of like 3 places in Maine that you could drive and then row a boat.
until
And usually
Palantir does its drone thing, and
the boat was left there. I mean, that's a big ass border to cover. But
it
maybe.
is. Yeah.
And besides which, it's questionably legal. I didn't say where I would go, but I would go to Israel. It's a very
Okay.
authoritarian country, but
It is.
I would go there. Yeah, no gun ownership, all sorts of crazy shit. No
Well,
cannabis.
let me say
Um,
this. Once we all go to our respective places, let's keep doing this wonderful podcast together, okay?
Yeah. All right.
right. Well, and you know, I think that all of those countries that we're talking about have the capacity to be changed by dynamic individuals. So Israel could become a better place.
Just through the force of data.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right. The weekly 5 things news quiz for this was done on Friday. So everything that's happened this weekend is not on there. I don't know if the Supreme Court decisions will be on here yet because they did come
Why does
down
it say
relatively early on Friday, but they may not.
5 things, but it's 10
It's
questions?
10 questions. So
All
two
right.
two questions per thing, I think.
All right.
But
Okay.
anyway, we got Waymo cars. We
Yeah.
got
Mamdani.
Mamdani, Zohran. You don't mess with the Zohran.
Right.
And
10
the Ten
Commandments.
Commandments.
Yep.
So
I think
that's
that's
our
in
context
Alabama.
clues for the week. Question number 1. President Trump announced numerous appointments to an advisory council inside the Department of Homeland Security this week. Which member of his inner circle was not selected? Rudy Giuliani, his former attorney. Corey Lewandowski, his former campaign advisor. Ivanka Trump, his daughter. Or Chris Cox, a chainsaw artist and founder of Bikers for Trump. What the?
I'm going to guess Ivanka.
Nah.
Yeah,
I mean, she's asked to stay out of everything. That's why I would guess
yeah.
that.
I
But
have no guess. I'll guess the chainsaw guy.
I'm gonna guess the chainsaw
No, I
guy
think
too, because that's the least experienced one.
Oh no, but look at what we've got in our cabinet right now. I think he's totally on brand.
He is
Brandy
totally on brand.
says, "Hey, Brandy." Brandy says Ivanka, and I think it is Ivanka because of her statements about staying out of the government. I think she had enough
yeah,
of those 4 years,
yeah,
and
Yeah.
her hobby is playing footsies with MBS. So
right.
you know, all right, we'll
All
go
right.
with Ivanka. Yes, Ivanka Trump
Yeah,
will not sit on the council, which will provide real-time, real-world, and independent advice on homeland security operations.
yeah. I'm glad the Bikers
Yikes!
for Trump guy is there.
I feel so much safer. That and that dude, the 22-year-old kid that is on the counterterrorism.
Yeah, go
Right.
figure.
The interesting thing about it though is that the
Oof.
bikers at least appreciate what it's like to have too many laws thrown upon you, and I'm thinking of helmet laws and stuff like that. So who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. Let's go Buffalo. All right, question number 2. A panel of 3 federal appellate judges ruled this week that which state's law requiring the 10 Commandments to be posted in public school classrooms was unconstitutional. Louisiana, Mississippi,
Louisiana.
Alabama, or Texas?
I'll give you a hint.
Louisiana.
It is
Louisiana. It was Louisiana. I'm
five.
not gonna pull
I'm
back from
going
that. It was Louisiana.
defer to Ari then. I would have guessed Alabama.
I'm going
Nope,
with
Louisiana.
Wait a minute. Hold on a second.
I was looking at it, and it's hard to tell what state house it is, at least for me. It's not
I
the
have
Texas
been
State House.
following
Is that
this
the Louisiana
case.
State
I
House
have
right
been
there?
following this case forever. I remember when I went up,
Randy
I went with
says.
friends to be able to go and talk in front of the Louisiana state legislator against it. It's Louisiana.
All right,
Right. John has
let's go
Alabama.
LA. Laissez le bon temps rouler.
Yeah.
Merci.
Oui.
The ruling
right.
marked a major win for civil liberties groups who say Louisiana mandate violates the separation of church and state. I
They
think we
will.
should
Yeah,
just have the
whose 10 commandments would it be? And it's not even commandments.
satanic
I will go
commandments.
on that diatribe later.
Well, yeah, I was going to say that the interesting thing about it is that not everybody's 10 commandments are the same.
Yeah.
Where
We have 613.
yeah. Well, I've just even in Christianity, for most Jews, the first commandment is, "I'm the Lord your God who led you out of Egypt to be your God. You shall have no other gods before me."
Yeah.
But that's not true for most Christians. They have a different
No.
first
And
commandment.
my first commandment is don't fake the funk on a nasty dunk.
Nice. I
Yeah.
believe that's Shaq, Saint Shaq.
That's right. Question number 3. Which supermarket chain announced plans this week to close 60 stores? Kroger, Trader Joe's, Aldi, or Wegmans? Please
I
not
would
Wegmans.
I would
I'm
guess
going to suggest
Kroger's.
Trader Joe's.
No,
I don't know.
I think it was. I think it might have been Aldi's.
Hmm.
I'm trying to look at any context clues in the blurred photograph.
You said where were the other ones? You said
I
Kroger.
almost want to say Kroger because Kroger
It's the most
acquires
old
stores all
school.
the time, and they probably have to close stores in certain locations because you don't
'Cause they're
want
old.
a Kroger store across the street from a Kroger store.
Well, and also,
Randy says Kroger.
they're also old. They have the
Well,
worst infrastructure. Um,
they
that
do
the
have
store
horrible
the store looks
infrastructure.
like a Trader Joe's to me, but I can't imagine Trader Joe's would be.
Oh,
All right,
yeah,
there we go. Kroger.
Let's do Kroger's.
Kroger.
Yep.
Yes, Kroger is set to close about 5% of its grocery stores over the next year and a half. The Kenny Rogers.
Kenny Rogers.
K. Roger.
Ah, I see. Nice.
Question
Uh,
number 4. Which team won the NBA championship this week? The Indiana Pacers, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the New York Knicks, or the Minnesota Timberwolves? It is a first-time winner.
OKC,
I'm
the,
guessing it is the Thunder.
the former Seattle Supersonics.
It is.
The only reason I know that
Time since
because
'79.
I knew the Pacers were in there, and I didn't see Sam Goldstein talking about it. So
No. Yeah. They lost in game 7. So,
yeah.
all right, question number 5. Residents in Santa Monica, California are upset with Waymo and its robo taxis for which of the following reasons? They are too expensive, they make too much noise, they keep crashing into parked cars, or they block bike lanes.
My
I
my
actually know
guess
this one, and it's an interesting one.
my guess was there was going to be a choice that says they keep bringing your wife back home.
But I'm dumb.
But
Wow.
wow, that wasn't on there.
I'm gonna guess it's because they block bike lanes.
Hmm.
I can't imagine expense or noise is an issue. Maybe if somebody tells me crashing into parked cars, but
Ari, what you
Yeah,
got?
there it would be all over the news. I haven't heard that of Waymo. Yeah, I'm gonna agree with block bike lanes.
I saw a story this week about Waymo, and the
yeah.
complaint is they're loud.
All right,
Really?
let's go with it.
All right,
San Francisco has
let's
had
go with it.
problems with them too. But people are saying bike lanes and crashing. But
You
this
say
is
you
the
saw a
story I
story.
saw.
Let's go.
I'm gonna defer with you,
And
Dave.
Yeah.
if I may, real
Hey,
quick, Brandy, I saw your comment, and all I'm saying is my first divorce left a lot of scars.
there
That's
you
funny.
go. There you go. All
But the
right.
second
Yeah.
divorce
So
was like butter.
residents
Sorry.
say the horns, backup beeps, and flashing lights on Waymo's robotaxis keep them awake at night. And so I
Okay.
guess they get to their location and they start honking, which
No, I think it's that because they back up and there's no person, they back up like a truck.
well, yeah, I can get the reverse beep, but they say the horns, backup beeps, and flashing
Yeah.
lights. So apparently, and we all have that friend that you call to pick you up, and then they sit
Yeah.
outside and they just honk the horn instead of coming up to the door like a human being.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I could see that.
All right.
Question number 6. Zohran Mamdani declared victory in New York City's Democratic primary for mayor. Which of the following policy ideas are not part of his platform? Freezing rent increase, raising taxes on the wealthy, making city bus rides free, or free childcare for working parents.
Freezing rent increases.
Yeah, the freezing rent increases.
Ah, is it?
Oh,
I know
maybe.
for
Think him
sure he
again.
wants to make city bus rides free,
I
and
know
he has
that the other two.
a
I thought it was
millionaire's
the.
tax.
Okay, well there we go. Oh no, it's free
Oh,
childcare for working parents.
wow.
33-year-old Democratic Socialist wants to freeze rent increases, raise taxes on the wealthy, and make the city's bus rides free. There ain't
Man,
no such thing as a free bus ride.
he's certainly gonna hurt residential availability.
The easiest thing that they could do is to have a much higher tax on properties that are not lived in, because there's a lot of speculative real estate in
Mm,
New York City.
mm,
Yeah,
And if you just say, okay, there's a discount, you make the tax rate be, property tax be something like 30%, and then say there's a discount though if your property is
is
inhabited for at
occupied.
least 6 months. Yeah. And
Yeah,
then the tenants will price their properties to be rented.
there you go.
Mhm.
yeah, but they tried that. They tried that in San Francisco, and that kind of backfired. Like it ended up raising and increasing rental rates because it's
They
just
they
like
tried
it's
it
a
in
decent
Perth.
idea. I went to Iceland, and this was the interesting thing is that the majority of cities there were able to have free buses because of how they ended up structuring things for their energy rebates.
Now,
Oh
Um,
yeah, because they
you
they
know,
they use thermo
yes,
energy.
Geothermal.
and I
geothermal.
can, Ari, I can go back to the 70s. I think they tried it in Perth, Australia, and there was a
Yes,
book about it called The Sustainable City. But just like what you just said, in the long run, it backfires.
yep,
Free buses can staffle. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch, but you don't have to make it free. You know, buses have
Yep.
advertising space in them, and
Yeah,
you could have
yep,
I mean
Wi-Fi, controlled
most of
Wi-Fi on the buses,
most
and
of the buses that I've been around, either with WMATA here in DC, close where I'm at, or when I was down in Atlanta, they were wrapped as they were essentially just big billboards, right?
outside and inside.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I'll say this: I worked as a financial analyst for a bus company here in State College, Pennsylvania, and they did have some routes that were absolutely free. The routes that
yeah,
actually serviced the students at Penn State. There were 4 different loops that were absolutely free. But were they truly absolutely free? No. The university was paying for them, and they happened to be the
Out
most
of student fees.
profitable routes of the entire bus company. So they were being paid for by a university. It's just that the students didn't have to pay every time they
It's
stepped on it.
yeah, student fees will
Yeah.
cover a lot of that stuff. All right, question
yeah.
number
Fair
7.
enough.
Which dating app is laying off hundreds of workers? Grinder, Tinder, Hinge, or Bumble? If it's Grinder, they need to encourage the Republicans to have more conventions.
Exactly.
I
I
don't
Well,
think it's Grinder. I don't. I
I don't
want.
think it's Grindr.
I want to believe that Grinder has a really great model, but
every tech company is laying off. Fundamentally, these are tech companies, and
yeah.
every tech company is laying
what
off.
are the 4 again? I didn't recognize them.
Grinder,
Grindr, Tinder,
Tinder,
Hinge, or Bumble.
right?
I've heard of Tinder.
Grinder
I wanna say
predates it.
Bumble. I
It's
do wanna say Bumble, because
yeah.
they ended up rolling out a thing where they took
Bumble.
away the ability of non-paying members to choose
Right.
certain, features on selecting people they want to be able to date or have, like, friendships with. Like, you couldn't filter by, you couldn't filter by religion or something like that.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, I could see it being Bumble. My only argument against Bumble is Bumble would have the least overhead of any of these because it's sort of the most open source. But I can go with Bumble. I don't really know what Hinge is. What is Hinge's
Hinge is another
niche?
dating.
It's
Yeah,
just, I
Yeah,
mean,
and just another one.
We're gonna
right.
follow your lead here, Ari.
go.
All
Let's
right.
go,
All right,
Bumble.
let's
Nice
It
see.
is
job.
Bumble, whose stock has lost 90% of its value since going public in 2020,
Wow, 90%.
axing 30% of its workforce. Question number 8. Which country won the most honors at the Decanter World Wine Awards in 2025? Italy, the US, France, or Spain?
I would
Ooh.
guess the USA.
I would guess the
We're,
US too.
yeah, we're
My
dominatingly the
first
best
thought
wine
was I'm
producing
guessing
nation.
Italy.
I don't know. The USA
I think
like
it's because
traditionally
there's such a
hasn't really dominated there very frequently. Like it's been between like Spanish wines and um Argentinian wines lately.
I th- I think the US has an advantage in some ways in that there are diverse regions that are producing wines now. You've got desert
That's
regions
true.
like New Mexico. You've got the Appalachian region like Shenandoah region like Virginia. You're
Yeah.
seeing just a wide variety of wines. So that
Texas,
may not.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
Calif just California
just
has
California
all of
alone.
them.
Yeah,
exactly. I
yeah.
mean, we are dominatingly the best wine producing country in the world. The question
I
is,
don't know.
I don't know about the
I've
quality.
been to France.
France has some nice wines. There's no question about it, but they don't have anywhere near the quantity
It's
of
yeah,
excellent wines.
it's quantity or quality. As the United States
And,
caught up in quality
yeah, you've
to
seen, you've
its
probably
European
seen you've probably seen the movie Bottle Shock when the first time American wines were allowed to compete in what was the best wine contest in the world. Everybody thought it was a joke, but it was a blind taste test, and America won everything. And this is
so
72. Since then, the French are really limited in what they can do because they have all sorts of strict governmental controls
oh yeah.
about how they can
Oh,
grow wine.
extremely strict.
And so that has really hindered them from making any advances in the
I,
vinting.
I'm
All right.
sticking
Brandy
with
says
Italy.
Spain.
Could be. I mean,
Could be Spain.
there's certainly
Spain is
going to be
always
bias against America at every.
at this point, yes.
Yeah. The question is, I don't know anything about this contest. Is it a
Yeah, I
blind
don't
taste
either.
test? But I'm still going
I
to vote for
don't
the
Yeah.
either.
USA. If it's anything agricultural, I will vote for the USA.
All right, let's do the US. Let's
Okay.
Oh, it's incorrect. It
Boo.
is France. France took home the 3,200 medals in a total, 1,000 more than its closest competitor, and 14 best in shows. How many
That's
medals are they
crazy.
giving off on
Yeah,
this
I was
thing?
going to
Holy
say,
shit.
if there's 3,200 medals,
That's
uh,
more than the Olympics.
it's
Yeah.
it's one. It's apparently one for every grape.
Yeah, jeez. Question number 9. A former jewelry store manager in the UK was sentenced to prison for stealing more than $170,000 in diamonds, gold, silver, and bespoke jewelry from a cash from her employer. How was she caught? Security cameras hidden in the store's light fixtures. She took the pictures of herself wearing the stolen merchandise. She dropped a bag filled with the loot on the street, or she bragged about the theft in a group chat.
I want to say it's
It
going to
was
be a
probably it
selfie,
was
but I
Pete's
don't know.
It's Pete
I'm guessing.
Hegseth's
I'm
chat.
guessing she took pictures while she wore it.
I agree. It's the pictures.
I think it was Pete Hegseth's Hootie PC chat. Small chat. But yeah, I think pictures of herself makes sense. Correct. Lucy Roberts sent her former co-workers selfies from a cruise decked out in items stolen from the shop. Now, you know,
There was a person in the Biden administration who got busted for doing this as well.
oh yeah,
They stole the suitcase at the uh,
at the airport.
at the airport, and then wore the dress to a public event where the designer whose suitcase it had been stolen saw, like, that's the dress that I made. And the crazy thing about it was the third time this person had been arrested for stealing luggage. At,
Oh, good Lord.
yeah.
Question number 10. Beyonce closed out the international portion of her Cowboy Carter tour with which special guest? Solange Knowles, Jay-Z, Jennifer Hudson, or Tracy Chapman?
I have
It
no
was
idea.
Solange.
Was
It
it
was
Was it
Solange?
Solange.
Solange?
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
I
was
can't say.
I would have guessed Jay-Z, but
I
I
mean, I
would've
was
guessed-
going to guess Dionne Warwick,
Oh no,
but
it was Jay-Z.
not on the list.
Oh,
see,
dang.
I would have guessed
I was
Tracy
wrong.
Chapman because Tracy
Let
Chapman.
let the record
Country.
reflect that I was predicting Jay-Z,
All right.
but I was
Yeah.
led astray.
Yeah.
Nah, that's all good. 7 out of 10 this
70%.
week, not too bad. We got a solid C this week. But yeah, that's a wrap on the political deep dive. Thank you, Ari,
Well-
for joining us this week. Joe, Dan,
And I'd just
appreciate
like to say,
everyone.
Dave, a solid C is good. We graduated in the top 2/5 of our class.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was not in the top 2/5 of my class. Well, college I did a lot better. Well, second time I went through college. The high school was not.
This
A
has been
great-
fun. You guys have been cool.
Yeah, enjoyed talking
definitely.
about hypocrisy. And anyway, thank you so much for joining us this week, and we will talk to you all next week.
Remember to like and
actually,
subscribe.
yeah, actually, I no, there won't be a show next week because I'll be recovering from 4th of July weekend. So
Nice.
Well, I guess
enjoy the
we'll
week
do
off.
the
I'll do a best of.
Where are you
for
going to
your
watch the fireworks,
entertainment.
Dave?
Probably going to. There's a little health clinic that that's on a hill by our high school that does a big fireworks display. So we'll probably park there and watch the fireworks.
Nice. I will be right at the. If you go take the Potomac south to where it bends to the west, there's a big hill, and we'll be sitting up there so we can see the mall fireworks.
Nice, right on.
Nice.
Headphones. My best
Uh,
friends are going to be headphones.
There you go. The only thing with the every time I've tried to watch the Capitol fireworks, it's always been a cloudy night, so you only see like flashes in the clouds. So hopefully you have a
used to
clear night on the 4th.
I used to volunteer at the Folklight Festival
There you
for
go.
years when I was in college, and so I would get to sit in the middle sometimes when that boat was brought out, so we could actually go and see up above everybody else.
Nice,
Cool.
excellent.
Dave, you were just in State College, weren't you?
I was
Well, I know. I want to
got my
point out
stamp
that
nerd on.
Fourth Fest is now coming up, and State College, I've seen it several times. They have the most amazing fireworks display, probably one of the best on the whole East Coast. As long as you don't mind putting up with Penn State traffic, it is something to see.
I might head
Where
south
where
this
are you?
week.
Where are you, Joe? Where are you in Pennsylvania now?
I'm just south. I'm in Huntington, Pennsylvania, about half an hour south of State College, and I work in the
Okay.
State College area.
You know
I
that
might
I'm
head
in.
south
You know
this
that
week
I'm
'cause-
in southeastern. You know that I'm in southeastern or southwestern Pennsylvania now, right?
I did not know that. We're in Southwest PA.
Greensburg.
Wow, not
Oh.
far at all. I grew up in Katanning, the Big K, just north of you.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, I go to the synagogue out in Greensburg.
Very cool.
Nice.
Very good.
Yeah.
Good to know that. Thank you for sharing that, Ari.
You need to come over. You need to come over and visit one of these days. I want to take you out to the Westmoreland Museum of American Art.
There you go.
Cool. We'll make it a point.
Yeah.
Thank
Named
you.
after
open
General
Facebook.
Westmoreland from the Supreme Commander in Vietnam.
No.
Just
Oh.
kidding.
I
Sorry.
mean,
There
there's
you go,
also the Fred Rogers Museum in Latrobe.
Latrobe. Yeah. Right by
Yeah.
St.
Home of
Vincent.
Rolling Rock.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Old
And
33.
St. Vincent's. Go Stillers.
My favorite
Yeah.
cheap beer. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. We'll
Good
talk
night,
to you all
all.
next couple weeks.